Hi, sixth grade. We're so close to the end of Perek Yud Daled. Today, you had translated Psukim Chaf Bet through Chaf Zayin. Let's take a look at those together. The drama is high. The tension is palpable. You can feel it in the air. The sea just split. What will happen next? To quote Yitzi in his check for understanding yesterday. Dun dun dun. Have your packets open, please, to page 34, and let's take a look at these psukim together. Chafbet. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam bayabasha. B'nei Yisrael came in the sea on dry land. Vahamayim lahem choma. And the water was for them a wall. Choma means a wall. Miminam umismolam. This is some classic shayachut here. Miminam. Mi means from, so ignore that part. Yiminam means yamin shelahem, their right. Umismolam. Smolam is small shelahem, and their left. Right? The water was a wall on both sides. So not so that you think like, it's not that the ocean all just swooshed off to one side and been through. It's that literally it was split, it was divided, and there were walls on either side. Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Vayirdefu Mitzrayim, Egypt chased, Vayavohu achareihem, and came after them. Kol sus Paro, all the horses of Paro, Richbo, his chariots, Ufarashab, and his riders, El Tochayam, into the sea. Vayihi ba'ashmorat haboker, and it was towards morning, because remember from yesterday's lesson, the eastern wind that came and blew the waters, it was said that it happened all night long. So all night long, the water blew and the wind blew and it kept the walls of the water up. And now it was a few hours later, it was towards morning, meaning close to dawn. Vayashkev Hashem al machane Mitzrayim, and Hashem looked out at the camp of Egypt, meaning the group of Egyptians. It's not that they were camped out, they were moving, they were traveling, but they're just called the camp. Quick note on the word Vayashkev. The shoresh shin kuf fei, you might recognize also from the word hashkafa, which in Judaism is this word that means like your outlook or your philosophy on life, your perspective on life. Different people have different hashkafas, we say sometimes. And that's the same shoresh, because vayashkef means to look, and hashkafa means your outlook, your perspective. So it's the same concept of looking. It also comes with mishkafayim, glasses, because they help you lahashkif, to look. So, Vayi b'shmar haboker, it was towards morning. Vayashkev Hashem al machane Mitzrayim. Hashem looked at the camp of Egypt, ba'amud eish va'anan, through the pillar of fire and cloud. Vayaham et machane Mitzrayim, and Hashem confused the camp of Egypt. He made them just like their brains just weren't like working. They got confused. They got muddled. They weren't sure what direction to go in. Maybe they forgot what they were doing. Like we've all had moments like that where we're a little confused and we're like, wait, what am I doing? How did I get here? Hold on. My brain just like stopped working for a second, right? Like there was a skip going on in there. So that's what happened to the Egyptians. Hashem caused this to happen to them. Chaf Hey, how did the Egyptians react to this sudden lack of understanding what's going on? Vayasar et ofan markevotav. Furthermore, what does Hashem do? He removed the wheels of their chariots. Hashem caused the wheels of their chariots to not work. Some say it was because the waters turned like muddy. Others say it was just because Hashem made the wheels like pop off. We don't know. All we know is that their chariots, which their war chariots, which they were so proud of, right? That this was something they were known all over the world, the ancient world for, all of a sudden stopped working. Split second. Vayinahagehu bichveidut. And Hashem, the yud here is like who, right? Hashem nahag, treated or acted who with them, or with him, meaning him, the camp, the Machaneh of Mitzrayim. Hashem acted with him, with them, bichveidut, with harshness. Kaved here means like to be heavy. Hashem treated them with a harshness. Vayomer Mitzrayim, and what did the Egyptians say? Anusa, I will flee, I will run away, mipnei Israel, from the Israelites. Ki Hashem, because Hashem, their God, Nilcham lahem b'Mitzrayim. It's fighting for them against Egypt. Be here doesn't mean in the land of Egypt. It means with the Egyptians. So Hashem is fighting for them with the Egyptians. Hashem is fighting with the Egyptians on their behalf. So all of a sudden you see what's one of Hashem's goals is that Egypt will recognize Yad Hashem. Well, it's working. The Egyptians are now saying, wow, this really is Hashem. It's almost like back when they said, when the magician said, Etzba Elokim Hi, right? They're acknowledging, wow, this isn't something that just random. This has to be God. This has to be their God fighting on their behalf. So one of Hashem's goals of getting Egypt to recognize them, it's coming true here. Ki Hashem nilcham lahem Mitzrayim. Pasuk Chavav. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. So Hashem said to Moshe, Niteyet yadcha al hayam. By this point, we have to assume all of Bnei Yisrael had gotten to the other side, had finished crossing the sea because of what's about to happen. Clearly, this is what happened. So you can imagine Bnei Yisrael are all out of the ocean. The Egyptians are like somewhere in the middle. All the entire Egyptian army is in the ocean, is in the sea. The walls are up. The walls of water are on either side of them. And Hashem tells Moshe, Niteyet yadcha al hayam. Spread out your hand over the sea. V'yashuvu hamayim al Mitzrayim. And the water will return on Egypt. Al richbo v'al parashav. On their horses, on their chariots, and on their horses. So Hashem tells Moshe to do this, and Chavzayin Moshe does this. Vayet Moshe et yado al hayam. He spreads out his hand over the sea. Vayashav hayam. And the sea returns. Lifnot boker, towards morning. Again, this was happening like just as daylight was breaking. La'etano. La'etan shalo means lachozek shalo, to its original strength, meaning it was a sea. This wasn't like a calm river or a pond or a puddle or a little lake. This was a sea, a big sea that had like crashing waves and things blowing and all that stuff. So it came back to its full strength. It was not a calm sea. Umitzrayim nasim likrato. And Egypt was running, nasim, like lanus, to chase. Egypt was fleeing likrato, to greet it, to face it, right? What does this mean? I looked in some of the Mefarshim. What does this mean? They were fleeing to greet it. Normally, if you're fleeing something, you're running away from it, not towards it. So again, this is part of the Vayaham et Mitzrayim, that Hashem had confused them. They were so confused, they didn't even know what direction they were going in, that while they were trying to flee, they ended up going right into the water. Vayinaer Hashem et Mitzrayim, and Hashem stirred, this was in your Milon on page 34, Hashem stirred Egypt b'toch hayam, in the ocean. All right, pause. What you're going to do here is go back to page 33 in your Choveret. Now that you've done the psukim yourselves and we've gone over them together, I'd like you to please answer the questions on page 33. I'll quickly translate them for you, and then you'll come back and we'll go over the answers together. So, 1, read Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Who is chasing after Bnei Yisrael? The Pasuk specifically mentions three elements that are chasing after Bnei Yisrael. They're not all people. That's my hint. 2, read Pasuk Chaf Hey. What did Mitzrayim say at this time? Tzatet. Please practice your quoting skills. Okay? Find words in Pasuk Chaf Hey that tell us what Egypt said at this time. And bet Ma Heim Amru al Hashem. What did they say about Hashem? This one is not Tzatet. So do this one in English. 3, Krat Pasuk Chavav. Read Pasuk Chavav. What does Hashem say to Moshe in Chavav? And why does Hashem say this? What is Hashem's reason for telling Moshe to do something? So pause the video and then come back. All right, here we go. Who chased after Bnei Yisrael? All of Egypt, meaning specifically the Torah mentions the horses, the chariots, and the riders. Things that they are very, very proud of. In Pasuk Chav Hey, what does Egypt say at this time? Anusa mipnei Yisrael, which means I will flee from Israel, I'll run away. And what did they say about Hashem? I happened to citate here as well. Ki Hashem nilcham lahem b'Mitzrayim, which means because Hashem is fighting for them against Egypt. In Chavav, what does Hashem say to Moshe? Spread out your hand over the sea and bet. Explain why. So that the water will return to its full strength and drown the Egyptian army. Now, let's take a look on page 35 together at a Rashi. In the last pasuk we read, Chaf Zayin, the Torah describes that Hashem stirred the Egyptians, Vayina'er Hashem. This is a very strange verb, Vayina'er, to stir something. And Rashi's puzzled by it. We don't really, I don't know if it's even shown up beforehand in the Torah. I'd have to look that up and see how many times that shorish comes up as a verb regarding people, right? That you stir people. So Rashi's question here is a very simple one. What does this mean? Like what's the imagery we're trying? What are we supposed to see when we hear or read that Hashem stirred them? So you should know this is I found this to be like a very powerful image. This Rashi, I learned it when I was in 5th grade learning Sefer Shemot, and it's stuck with me ever since. So I don't know, maybe it'll stick with you too. So here we go. Page 35, follow along together. Rashi says, this is ke'adam. This is like a person, shemina'er et ha'kedera, who is stirring the kedera. A kedera is a pot. This is like a person who is stirring a pot. I'm imagining a big pot of like chunky vegetable soup. You got your chunks of potato and carrot and celery and all that goodness and delicious stuff. Maybe you got some chunks of meat if you like that. Right, a big hearty soup, and you're making a big pot of it because you're like freezing a whole bunch of it and you're planning for months in advance, or you're serving up a big party. You've got a big pot of soup. So what do? If that soup is on the stove, you don't want it to burn. What's the best way you avoid burning? You stir it. But we're not talking stirring round and round. We're talking stirring up and down because you don't want the stuff on the bottom to burn. So every half hour or so, you make sure it turns over. So Rashi says that's what Hashem was doing with the Egyptians. Ka'adam shemina'er ha'kedera, like a person who is stirring a pot, vehofech ha'elyon lamata, and they hofech, you know what that means, hafach, to flip, to turn. Elyon means the upper, like lamala. They flip the things on top to lamata, the bottom, and vice versa. V'hatachton, and anything that's tachat, that's under, comes lamala, to the top. Kach hayu, olin v'yordin, umishtabrin bayam. This, kach, just like this, they, meaning the Egyptians, were olin v'yordin. They were rising and falling. They were being thrown up to the top layers of the ocean, of the sea, and pushed down, like as if they were sinking, only like forcibly pushed down under the water. Umishtabrin. What's the shorish of mishtabrin? Shin bet resh, shiber. Like Moshe, lishbor et haluchot. They were being smashed in the ocean. This is how the Egyptians were moved up and down, sinking and rising and smashing into the sea. This was not some kind of a slow drowning of someone who like can't keep themselves up. This is they were being forced under and up and under and up and smashing and crashing against each other. And it was very violent. Just like you could imagine the chunks of food in your vegetable soup that you're stirring around. Hopefully you're not stirring that super violently because you don't want, hot boiling soup to burn you. But this image of the Egyptians who don't get a quick death. This is not a quick death. That's too kind, almost. Hashem is punishing them, and punishing them really harshly. Hashem is making them suffer. They go down, they go up, they think they can get some air, and then boom, they're crashed back down again, and the water's smashing in their face, getting up their noses, in their ears, they're choking, they're sputtering, they're getting their breath back, then they're going back down under. It's horrific. And Hashem caused this in order to make them suffer. This was a punishment for them, a long, drawn-out death. And this image, I mean, maybe it's because I love cooking, I don't know, but this imagery of the pot that you're stirring it's always stuck with me. And this word, vayina'er, to stir, this has always been something that's been very clear in my mind since learning it, that they were going up and down and up and down and up and down, and it was really terrible for them. And this phrase, lina'er, to be stirred, this actually shows up in Shir in Shir Tayam, which is Az Yashir. We will hopefully be looking at that after we're done with this parak. But every day when I say Az Yashir and I come across the phrase that Hashem b'ni eret chelo I'm mixing up the words, but this exact phraseology is used, that Hashem stirred the Egyptians in the sea. Immediately what pops into my mind is this long drawn out drowning of the Egyptians. And I find it a little satisfying. Like, they were really not nice to the Jews. They deserve this kind of a death. So that is how Rashi answers, what does this word Vayinaer mean? So take a look at the bottom of page 35. Please answer these 3 questions on Rashi. 1, what's Rashi's question? 2, Aleph, what happened to the Egyptians in the sea, and 3, explain why. And then so pause the video, answer those, and then we'll come back and we will go over it together. Question 1, what's Rashi's question? What does it mean to stir the Egyptians in the sea? This is an unusual word to use regarding people. 2, Aleph, what happened to the Egyptians? They were stirred like food in a pot. The top was pushed down to the bottom was brought up to the top. They were crashing into each other. It was very violent, like I said before. And explain why. This was a punishment to make them suffer. Now, in case you're feeling really bad for the Egyptians, there's another midrash. Rashi doesn't quote it, but there's another midrash related to this idea that actually says there were 3 levels of severity of how harsh this punishment was, based on how bad the Egyptians were to the Jews. If they were terrible to the Jews, then they only went down under the water a little bit, then bobbed back up, then went down a little bit under the water and back up. So it was just like, almost like you're jumping in a pool. Slightly less suffering. Then if they were like not the worst to the Jews, but they were still not very nice to them, they went down a few feet deeper before they were brought back up, and a few feet deeper before they were brought back up. And then the 3rd level of evil Egyptians, they were the ones who suffered the most. They were brought all the way down to the sea bottom before they were brought back up, and then brought all the way down and brought back up. So if this was a little too violent for your understanding and you almost feel really bad for the Egyptians, the Midrash sort of mitigates that and calms that down a little by saying some of them suffered more than others, depending on how bad they were to the Jews. But I thought that would be interesting to throw in there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please complete the check for understanding on Google Classroom. Make sure you are studying your Shorashim, the 2nd round of Shorashim, and you have an open notes assessment on Friday. Just before filming this, I actually came up with an idea. I think it's going to be really fun, actually. I think it's going to be a cool assessment. I also read your comments on the Google Drive type-in worksheet. Didn't seem to be people's favorite, so I'm just going to say thank you for being my guinea pigs once again. And it was an interesting idea. I didn't really like grading them so much, and it sounded like you guys didn't like it either. So we tried it once, we gave it a good shot, and now we're going to say, okay, we're not doing that again. But that's it for today. Bye, guys.